Digital media was a new cool kid on the block. Print circulation was falling, no one really wants to pay for news anymore, and readers want their news fast on their phones and computers. Just pay for a domain, hire some writers, fund it with a few adverts in your site, go for some viral articles, and boom, you're in on the money. Those print suckers are too busy competing with each other on the same story, and pumping out stories to fill a newspaper, but online news sites and blogs could just upload an exclusive story whenever they wanted. Journalists were poached from print outlets, and a new wave of reporters wrote stories about underreported areas. Traditional media was forced to rethink its strategies and approach to the news, and get with the times, or get in the recycling bin. BuzzFeed evolved from a meme and quiz pumping machine to offering BuzzFeed News, and Vice came out of nowhere to produce edgy opinion pieces, out there journalism, and covering foreign affairs. But like Chelsea's new ownership, things looked great, but now everything's a total mess. BuzzFeed News is no more, and Vice Media has filed for bankruptcy. But why has this happened? I'm going to explain why these brands were so popular at one point, their decline, why they have crumbled, and how digital media is not the rosy future of journalism we all thought it was.
It spans the globe like a superhighway. It is called Internet.
With the launch of the internet, users could access the information far and wide on the World Wide Web. For media organisations, this had the potential to be the new platform for their products, an extension of their print, TV or radio service. BBC News, CNN and The Guardian were among the early adopters of the online news, and allowed users to eventually get stories on their desktops.
What's happening?
It's loading.
2002 saw the rise of blogs, with online outlets like Gawker and Gizmodo quietly building an audience and addressing growing niches on the internet. A year later saw Google launch AdSense, and suddenly anyone can make money off their blog with embeddable ads on their sites. BuzzFeed launched in 2006, and their focus was on viral content and the early emergence of quizzes, GIFs and memes. This laid the successful foundation of the brand, attracted outside investment, but BuzzFeed wants to branch out into long-form journalism and investigative stories. In 2011, Ben Smith from Politico became its new editor-in-chief, and the site later broke several exclusives. This included allegations against Kevin Spacey, corruption at FIFA, Trump telling Michael Cohen to lie to Congress, and uncovering R. Kelly's imprisonment of young women. BuzzFeed News even won the Pulitzer Prize for international reporting for its coverage of the internment camps as part of China's campaign against Muslims. Good old-fashioned journalism and quizzes on how you would die in Game of Thrones earned BuzzFeed a value of £1.5 billion. Vice News was born from its various documentaries and reports from across the world, and became a separate branch of Vice Media. Its parent group spunk $50 million into Vice News and hired some journalists to head up various branches across the world and produce some thought-provoking coverage. They produced documentaries into the Russian invasion of Ukraine, life inside North Korea, and features on ISIS. But he also produced quite eccentric looks on life, with looks into the world of drugs, the sex industry, weird habits, and getting a fake restaurant, the best rated restaurant in London on TripAdvisor.
What is it about traditional media you think that turns off young people so that they're attracted to Vice?
Well, a couple of things. I think every generation you have a changing of the guard in media.
Right.
Woodward and Bernstein were the punks of their generation, and now they're the old guard. And by definition, when you have a changing of the guard, you have a different language. If you have a different language, then the people who are in the status quo say, well, that's not news because you're not doing it the same way I'm doing it. So when we look at it, we say, look, we're going to go to a story more in a documentary filmmaking standpoint of we press record and let the story evolve, rather than there's a fire at City Hall, get me 2 pictures, and shoehorn in the story. So it's a combination of Gen Y having a different language, and there being sort of a changing of the guard with digital online content.
But you have...
At its peak in 2017, Vice was worth $5.7 billion, received $450 million investment from private group TPG. Now, of course, while we go through their notable achievements, it's also quite important to highlight the nasty stuff that happened behind the scenes. A number of sexual harassment lawsuits have been settled by the brand, including one against the then president Andrew Clayton. The firm also paid nearly $2 million to roughly 675 former staffers assessment in the class action lawsuit alleging the company regularly paid women less than men. Both brands managed to attract a young audience and show there's still an appetite for long-form journalism. This showed journalism was still interested and could retain people's attention, especially if they were packaged in a new way. That's even before those Subway Surfer overstimulation videos. Seeing the popularity of Facebook, digital media and news outlets use the site and other platforms as a new tool to share their news and expand their audiences. For legacy media, their core audience could be expanded to a global audience. Digital media outlets like BuzzFeed and Vice banked their growth on social media and respectively attracted millions of likes and followers. And to be honest, why not? It's a free online tool to draw more visitors to their sites and therefore more online traffic, advertising revenue and brand awareness. It was like the Konami code for publishers. Many digital publishers banked their business strategy and audience on being focused on social media. This meant that Facebook suddenly had a larger grip on the news industry than anyone could imagine. After a fall in comments, likes and reshares, the Big Zuck changed the Facebook algorithm in 2018 to prioritise reshared material and reportedly improve bonds with close users. Yet instead, the changes caused misinformation, toxic comments and violent content to surge. Brilliant. Out goes the minion memes, here come the white supremacy posts. Publishers were noting that more reactionary content was performing much better for engagement, comments and click-through rates. BuzzFeed chief executive Jonah Peretti even emailed a top Facebook official to say that the most decisive content produced by publishers was going viral on the platform. Then Facebook started to penalise publishers who would frequently post within relatively short time periods. Effective publishers' content would never seem to make the news feed, lose their audience and reduce chances of a post going viral. Now you can start to see that this is a problem for not just BuzzFeed News and Vice, but for media publishers in general. Social media sites want users to stay on their platforms. This is why you'll see memes, 5-minute craft videos about using pool noodles to replace a car tyre, and people arguing with each other in a Facebook group more than actual news stories. Publishers had to be smart and try and follow the algorithm like an F1 car trying to get a solid slipstream behind a car to come faster. Me explaining this hopefully explains why this was a big factor in their downfall in the beginning of the year for both respective brands. Digital ads are a lot of stuff. It could be column banners, header banners, in-article ads that you accidentally click on, or those pop-up ads that cause you to chuck your phone across the room in frustration. But of course you won't see those because you've got an ad blocker installed. It can also be sponsored stories or just embedded links which generate some money to pay for its writers. This is what funds digital journalism alongside private funding. BuzzFeed's model was to have the serious journalism on one side, but the cat memes and personality quizzes on the other to learn users and then make sure they had a nice broad audience.
David said that we're very serious and we're doing incredibly serious journalism. And we do have a long-form section that I'm very proud of. We've just hired foreign correspondents around the world. We are building an investigative journalism team. But things like Basset Hounds running are very important for the social web.
Companies would be keen to have their ads alongside nice fun quizzes, but not an extra expose of a celebrity or a horrendous crime. Vice News was largely the same too, with ads within stories and scattered across their sites. Meanwhile, digital advertising revenue was going instead to social media platforms, particularly Facebook. I mean, think about it, why advertise on a publisher's site when you could just pay the same amount on Facebook or Twitter and reach a bigger audience and be closer to your potential customers? And why pay for advertising at all when you could just do some viral posts or a silly dance on TikTok to promote your brand and gain some advertisement? Both brands struggled and they were not hitting their respective revenue targets. And like any other company, instead of blaming the people who make the poor business decisions, they made journalists making the money redundant.
Why are they not being successful? I think you've already said it. It just shows how hard it is to make progress in the world of digital publishing, where especially when you have the big tech companies creaming off all the advertising revenue. These companies tried different things. You heard that Vice kept reinventing itself, but in the end it simply wasn't making enough money to survive.
The bottom line is that journalism is largely not that profitable and digital revenue alone is not enough to finance a news operation. By the time publishers realise that paywalls and asking readers for donations is the way forward for sustainable journalism, they might be already a bit too late. Struggles to make any money, Vice News and BuzzFeed ploughed on and tried to fight their losing battle. Then COVID happened. COVID was the catalyst that seemed to accelerate the shrinking of the journalism industry, with staff either furloughed or working on reduced pay.
You would think it would be a boom time for the news industry. But outlets from small-town papers to large networks are grappling with a cash crunch. The global economic fallout from the pandemic has contributed to a drastic fall in advertising. Generating money to keep organisations going is becoming harder. In the UK, publishers have asked advertisers not to practice block listing on websites. That's when ads are banned from showing up next to stories about the virus.
Audience figures were relatively still quite strong throughout 2020, with multiple outlets reporting spikes in traffic from anxious readers trying to get the latest news about the pandemic. But the economic downturn caused by lockdown measures across the world drastically reduced advertiser spending and a major support for media outlets. BuzzFeed announced it was closing its UK and Australian news operations, with 15 editorial staff being cut in both newsrooms. Vice Media cut 55 jobs in the US and 100 globally. These jobs were never going to be regained, and both media outlets continued to decline in value and revenue. April 2023 saw BuzzFeed announce its news brand would close as a result of mass redundancies of around 180 jobs. Their news would instead be focused on HuffPost, and former BuzzFeed News employees would either be moved there or work for BuzzFeed.com. Vice Media Group filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in mid-May, and its flagship TV programme also shut down. Vice have gone for the poster boys of modern journalism to being paraded to potential buyers like a cow at a cattle market. BuzzFeed News and Vice News banks on social media audiences, digital ad revenue and continued investments to ensure they could survive and have sustainable journalism. But like a row of dominoes, they fell one by one. Talented journalists have been poached by other traditional outlets or just lost their roles. It goes to show there isn't an established or successful business model for free online news these days. BuzzFeed is still around and sharing as viral quizzes that made the brand so famous in the first place, while Vice News has an uncertain future and may not be able to produce the same journalism as it did in its heyday. I mean, when you're owned by several investment firms, that is really going to put a stronger hold on what you can actually write. Both outlets use their light-hearted and quirky looks to life to springboard their own news operations, but readers just couldn't quite buy it. It was like watching a fun episode of Chucklevision and Paul would start talking about the Iraq War. The downfall of these brands is quite concerning, and it shows that there are some troubling times ahead for the media industry. MTV News has recently shut down, the Mail Online has cut dozens of jobs, and publisher Reach plc has culled hundreds of jobs, and this won't be the last we'll hear of it. In fact, the Press Gazette analysis found news media jobs cuts in the UK and North America ran at a rate of 1,000 jobs a month in the first quarter of 2023. Nowadays, redundancies are dressed up as market uncertainty, and terms like attention recession and change in audience trends are thrown in to distract publishers from blaming their own business decisions for the loss of jobs. It's also worth noting that people are just avoiding news altogether. Study shows that news avoidance is a growing trend, with people just not keen to hear about how everything is screwed and there's nothing you can do about it. A recent report into this issue said that while there's no simple solution to this, maybe more positive and more explanatory formats could help re-engage our audience. Personally speaking, my role has been up for redundancy twice this year. It's sad, frustrating, anxiety-inducing. It just makes me want to find the nearest phone booth to yell into. I'm in a glass case of emotion! But this will be a recurring theme for journalists going forward. Do good work, but your workmate will probably lose their job. Get more tasks to do and not be able to do the stories you actually want to do. Try and find work elsewhere, but everyone's going for the same role, so you better nail that job interview. If your mate is a journalist or works in the industry, maybe buy them a pint and just ask them if they're doing alright. My thoughts go out to all those affected by the redundancies and these market uncertainties. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you did like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more of this sort of thing, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And of course, comment below what you thought about the video or if there's any other topics you want me to explore. This is the sort of video I want to do on this YouTube channel, so hopefully stick around and maybe see you next time.